All right, all right. Good afternoon, everybody. It is a wonderful Monday, September 16th. I don't know about where you all are, but it's raining here in Richmond, a little gray outside. Hopefully, you have some sunshine where you are. Is it raining by you, Dr.
It's,
Roz?
it's not raining, but it's a little gray
It's
and
gray out there.
yeah.
That's okay. We're going to bring the sunshine. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring the sunshine. All right, everyone. So, I typically do my Mondays live and I talk about things that are relevant to school leadership. And I am so excited for this Monday to kick off a week of live sessions with experts in the field. And I'm just going to jump right in because I want you all to first, I need you to take a look at your screens for a hot second. Okay. Look at your screens. You got Dr. Rosalynn Gaskins, known as Dr. Roz,
Yes, yes.
who is a published author. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And you can see her book in her background, and me as well, another, you know, woman in the field doing the thing, just like Dr. Roz, published author. I'm just super excited for this excellence on the screen now. I mean,
Woo,
we got to big each other up on this kind of stuff. You know what I
yes,
mean? um, so I'm super excited to introduce Dr. Rosalynn Gaskins with us today, also known as Dr. Roz. And today we're going to be talking about, fueling the fire. What most leaders fail to like, why most leaders fail to build lasting teams in their buildings, right? And then how to get it right, right? So we have Dr. Gaskins here to talk about her expertise in building teams and talk about her work, a little bit of her work with what she does at the village. So it's such an honor to have you here, Dr. Gaskins. So before we dive into today's
yes.
topic, could you please introduce the Village Leadership Group and sharing a little bit about the work that you do helping leaders from all industries build communities that truly provide the resources that they need to be successful? Can you share that with us?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. And kudos to all that you're doing. So I'm super excited to share the stage with such an amazing educator and leader. Um,
Thank
so
you.
the Village Leadership Group was started right before the pandemic. I've been doing this work as far as building leaders and training teachers as leaders for, I don't know, forever, seems like more than 15 years. And doing right before the pandemic, I started the Village Leadership Group LLC. Again, my quest of building leaders and pouring into teachers and developing them as such. And the pandemic happened. And
Right.
so everything shut down. And I said, oh gosh, what am I going to do now? And so I was networking, meeting other awesome leaders like yourself. And the book happened, online course happened. So much has happened.
Yes.
Um, so Set Your Team on Fire is pretty much the foundation of our work, building collaborative communities. I've heard from nonprofits, churches, and other organizations saying, hey, we're using this book to build our leaders and to build that community within our teams. So I'm thinking it's just for teachers and for schools, but it's actually
Yeah.
helping other organizations as well build that collaborative culture in their
Yeah.
community, in their organization. So that's what the village is all about. We believe that it takes a village to build strong leaders.
Yes.
So it's about training, professional development, and coaching leaders.
Nice. Oh, that's so beautiful. And what's really beautiful about that is you started out with one thing in mind, right? And it
Hmm.
and it grew because there's a need that people have for this cohesive team work, right? This collaborative
Exactly.
work. And so this book and the work that you're doing really spreads across, the different industries and different fields, which is absolutely wonderful. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So your book, Set Your Team on Fire, has such an energizing title. I love that title. Well, we got something going on with some fire here because my
Yes,
book, Decisions by Fire, is you gotta light people up.
we on
I love it. Can you please share a strategy with us from the book that leaders can use to ignite their passion and commitment, the passion and commitment of their teams? And then how do you see this translating across the industries that you mentioned?
Definitely. Well, first of all, we talk about setting your team on fire in the three elements of a professional learning community. So I relate this back to setting a fire and the three elements of a fire. I taught math and science, so I went back to science and the three elements to starting any fire. You need fuel, you need oxygen, and you need heat. And so
Mhm.
those are the three elements that I talk about in my book. Fuel is setting the team's purpose. Oxygen is igniting a purposeful team for optimal impact. And then heat is build and spread teacher leadership.
Yeah,
And that's the one that
love
I
that.
want to talk about.
Mhm.
Talking about the fuel is the purpose. And we always talk about starting with why, right? And I believe your book talks about that, about the why, the purpose,
Yes.
core values. It's the heart of the work.
Yep.
And I think that's why we both in our book talk about fire. If we're
Yeah.
not connected to the heart of a person and their why, then people are going to be kind of lackluster about doing the work.
Yes.
And when you're talking, the people who are benefiting from this book, they connect with that, making
Mhm.
sure that we're connecting back to our why, especially in education, because as you know, teaching and school leadership, that is not easy work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you always have to remind yourself of the why,
Yeah.
and get right back to the foundation because that drives you, that motivates you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so as leaders, sometimes it can be lonely um, in leadership, and you're thinking, everything is on me.
Yeah. Yep.
But again, going back to our why is so, so important.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, yeah, so that's the foundation. And then the other thing that I always tell leaders is that your number one priority is to build other leaders.
Yes. Build
Um,
them up.
Build
Mhm.
them up because
Mhm.
you can't do this work alone. So you need to look around you and see who else who have the skill set, the willingness to step up and be a change agent for your organization.
Right.
That can kind of get things moving and going, and who's committed to the vision.
Yes, for
Um,
sure.
that
Yes.
is so important as leaders,
Yeah.
to make sure that you're looking around and say, okay, I need a team, and I
Yeah,
need to.
absolutely. And that's part of getting it right. Like, what you cannot, like you said, do this work alone. And it's really about how do you carry this work when you're
Mhm,
gone? What is your legacy that you're leaving? How are you making this sustainable for the people in your school community? And you need your team, right?
definitely.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And so, in connecting what you just said, when in my book Decisions by Fire, I talk about um the importance of decision making, right? And having this clear value driven foundation when you're making decisions. um how do you see the role of defining core values? Because you touched on this a little bit, but how do you see the role of defining core values in helping leaders build sustainable systems? What role does that play? Yeah, and you touched on it, but if you can go a little deeper on like how
Mhm.
you go about doing that and those connections.
Yeah. So one of the things, Principal Confele, um, who's an awesome, mentor,
He's
leader.
amazing. Yeah.
He's amazing. He always
Yeah.
puts up the mirror. And he
Mhm.
talks about being on fire as well. So we can bring him onto the fire team.
Yeah, right.
But one of the things that I think about, he always talks about looking in the mirror and being reflective. And I take that to heart because as a leader, when I'm, like you say, making decisions, when you're in the trenches, you do have to kind of reflect and think about, how does this work tie into my core values?
Yes.
What's my beliefs about this work, about my students, about my school community?
Yes.
And so that's going to keep you motivated. And again, aligning your core values with the work, of making sure that you can see your core values in your school's mission statement, in your organization's vision.
Yes.
Because if you don't see yourself, your core values in the work, then why are you there? Why are you a leader
Absolutely.
in that organization? Uh,
Absolutely.
so there's a
Yeah.
gap, there's a disconnect, and you're
Yes.
gonna be burned out. You're gonna be stressed because you don't see yourself in the work.
Absolutely.
Um,
It's so the fact that you even said that, like, that's exactly in chapter 1. I talk about mind the gap. And it's
hmm
funny because my mom was asking me, like, what does that mean, mind the gap? And it's exactly what you just said is when your core values are not aligned to your actions, that's the gap. And when
Definitely.
you are operating in that gap, that's when you feel those things that you just expressed, right? Like
hmm
you're unhappy, you don't understand why you're not finding fulfillment in the work because
Definitely.
you're operating in that gap instead of actually aligning your values to your actions.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
as a leader, one of the things that I do, I always talk about leaders giving your team members space to reflect on that.
Yeah.
Because again, especially in the work, in the schools, we're busy, 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 right?
Yep.
And we have so much on our plates. But if we don't pause and really connect with our core values and um, see how it connects with our work, then it will burn you out. You'll be stressed
Absolutely.
out. You're not going to have joy in the
Absolutely.
work.
Yeah.
It's like, what's my purpose? How does this relate?
Yeah.
Um, and so that, again, going back to our why, going back to the
Mhm.
big
Mhm.
why of why we're working together and doing this work.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a good segue into this whole piece about emotional intelligence and this transparency, right? So, I discuss a lot about how those two things actually live in leadership. And so, how do you guide leaders in fostering these qualities of, emotional intelligence, being aware of your feelings and how you're engaging with people, and empathy and being transparent? How do you guide leaders in fostering these qualities within their teams, right? And how
Mm,
does it align to the work that you do at the Village Leadership Group?
awesome. So one of the things that we do, we talk about our strengths, and
Mm,
I'm a strengths certified coach, and so using Gallup strengths. And so one of the things is being reflective and talking about our strengths.
right.
And we talk about sometimes your strengths are your talents, your gifts, your talents,
Yes.
things
Yes.
that happen that just you can do them without thinking about them. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, all of our strengths, we call it like a basement, or sometimes it's like a weakness. Um, so we make sure that we're being reflective and talk about, you know, where does this show up? Where's, like you said, talk about gaps, and where is it that we're, you know, really need to fine tune our strengths and make sure
Yes.
that we're being transparent and honest. And how can we partner with other members of our team so that we
Yeah.
can overcome that so-called weak area
Yeah.
in our leadership?
That blind
One
spot.
exactly one
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
things about me is that I am big on making connections and relating with people. Those are my strengths.
Right.
However, there's a weakness to that strength
Right.
where sometimes I can be overly emotional, or I can
Mhm.
have too much sympathy
Yeah.
for people on my team. So again, I need other administrators, other leaders who know that about me,
Mhm.
who can kind of hold me accountable to reflecting on that weak area. And so when I'm making decisions, or when I'm really having a moment and I can be honest, I can receive coaching. I always tell people coaches have coaches. Every
Yes.
great leader need a coach. I need a
Absolutely.
thought partner. So when I feel like, wait a minute, I need to step back. I need to be able to talk to someone. I
Yes.
need to get advice. Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Do you think I'm doing too much? Or
Right.
this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Because I'm a people person, sometimes my feelings get hurt.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know
Okay.
that about myself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And maybe I'm taking things too personal. So, and as a leader, I need to be able to recognize that and then seek out counsel, seek out advice.
Yeah.
And so that's what you need to do as a leader. Like I said before, sometimes it can be lonely, but find people in your village that can
Mhm.
hold you accountable. They can listen to you, vent, or give you wise counsel, and that would kind of help you stay balanced and
Yeah.
really recognize those weak areas and those moments where you know what I need to work on this area.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like what I'm actually hearing you say is, because when you think about, there are some leaders who are just unaware of
Hmm.
what their strengths and growth areas are. And so it sounds like the first thing that a leader really should do is take an assessment like Gallup's or a high five or,
There's so many,
some
yeah.
kind of there's so many versions out there that you can tap into, but becoming more aware by just taking it,
Hmm.
right? And reading it and analyzing it and sharing it with your leadership team and then having your leadership team take it too. So you all become aware of each other's,
Exactly.
strengths and how you can lean on each other and complement one another where you may be lacking in one area, there's someone else on your team. I think that's a really great point that you raised about, being able to understand what your strengths are when you're using assessments like this, right? But the first step is actually taking it, right? Like everybody should take it. And you change over time because I know I've taken some assessments years ago that are totally different now based on our experiences. So, to stay current um and true to who you are, it's really important to connect with these assessments. I'm so glad you shared
Exactly.
that.
Yes,
Yeah.
you should take it, especially when you get a new job, a promotion, or maybe you're in
Mhm.
leadership where before you would, in the classroom. So take it because like you said, you'll find that you've changed a little bit.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about this the compound effect. So Darren Hardy has this book called The Compound Effect. I don't know if you've read it or not, but it's the idea of taking small steps and being consistent with those steps in order for momentum to build, right? For some change to happen. And so with those consistent actions, that it leads to like a long-term result. Very similar to what you were talking about earlier is, you know, using your team so that you're not working in isolation for the long haul, right? Like this whole sustainability piece. So, from your experience, what are some small yet impactful actions leaders can take that build trust and create accountability within their organizations and their teams?
I'm so glad you mentioned that because again, one small thing can make a huge difference.
Hmm.
One of the things that I've seen and I've done is add in 5 minutes during a staff meeting for the leader to share,
Right.
to be vulnerable,
Yes.
to give, to share a story
Hmm.
about maybe a challenge they had to overcome for that week. Um, People need to see their leader um, say, "I'm sorry."
Yes.
Or
Yes.
say, "Oh, I don't know." It's just the little
Hmm.
things in conversation. And if it's something that is repeated over and over again, it becomes a norm
Yeah.
where the
Absolutely.
leader is being vulnerable. The leader is taking a risk. And so you have to be intentional. So at every staff meeting, when the principal is sharing updates, you know, the principal or the leader of the organization stands up and share, have a vulnerable moment. Oh,
Yeah.
there was an issue that I had this week and I was able to partner with Miss So and so or Mr. So and so, and he helped me do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
small change, but it becomes consistent.
It
Because
does.
too
It
often,
does.
sometimes leaders want to put on that look like I know everything, or
to
and so
to
that
our
is
detriment. It's always to our detriment. It's one of the worst stances to take as a leader.
exactly. Or I can
Yeah.
do everything by myself.
Yep. Yep.
I know everything. I can do it all. I know it all. I'm always right. I'm never wrong. So So if you're sharing, being vulnerable, taking risks, um, putting, being intentional about partnering with teachers, doing the work, rolling up your sleeves.
Yep.
Maybe every Tuesday, every Thursday, you take time out where you're rolling up your sleeves and going in and working with a small group, or maybe there's some task. People need to see the leader do the work,
Yeah,
and not just
absolutely.
talk about it.
Yep.
So just to, like you said, it's little, but if you're consistent, it's so powerful.
It is so impactful. I remember my early in my career as a principal, I was, you know how you're always talking about data at a meeting and that kind of stuff. And there was one point where I was trying to get the staff to understand, like put faces with the numbers of students that we had in
Hmm.
our buildings instead of just like checking off a list, but really like connecting to the numbers, right? And I told a story about me, like I put my face on one of the images and was like, these students are me. And I'm sure it's a lot of you sitting in here, right? And told them the story about, being on free reduced lunch, growing up in the hood, those kinds of things. And it was so interesting because at least I, three teachers came up to me afterward, and one of them is one who always gave me pushback. Came up to me at separate times and was like, "I really appreciate you sharing that and being vulnerable. I really wish you would do that more." And that there told me like I needed to be real, right, and show my
Hmm.
vulnerability with my staff. So
Exactly.
to your point, it is exactly what staff need in order to feel like, okay, I can follow this person. I believe in what this person is doing because he or she has shown me that they are human, right? Like they don't know
Exactly.
everything, that they have endured some things that are maybe similar or unsimilar to mine. Just the human side of being a leader.
Yep.
Yeah. So thanks for that, for because it just echoed like, yeah, that is absolutely true. Those things are absolutely needed. Um Okay, so finally, we've both worked closely with leaders who face burnout. We talked about some of the things right now, like, feeling like they need to do it all by themselves, or, they're alone on this island. Because one thing I have noticed too in working with some leaders is a lot of them are afraid to ask for help because they don't want to feel like they can't do the job, right? And that's really the opposite of what they should be doing, right? So we work with leaders who are facing this balance, like this burnout, because they're trying to balance high expectations and manage your own well-being, right?
Yeah.
So what advice would you offer leaders to maintain the balance and keep their teams motivated, right? Because
Yeah.
that's pulling on more of you, right? When you have to keep your team motivated while staying aligned to this like personal leadership vision. What advice would you give leaders?
Be intentional about putting structures in place before the work gets really hard. So it's the
Mhm.
beginning of the school year. So let's plan right now for those moments, those check-ins.
Yes.
Let's plan for the staff retreats. Let's plan
Yes.
for the admin to go ahead, put it on the calendar now
Right.
before the
Right.
schedule gets too busy and too hectic. That's something that my leadership team, we already did. We already had one lunch. I think it was the second week of school, and we already start scheduling them for the whole year, because we know that things are going to get hectic, right? And that's
Yeah.
it's going to be that moment. Let's say in February, March, where things are really hectic, where it's going to pop up. We're going to get the notification. We're going to be like, oh,
Hello? I
yes,
think
I'm
you
here.
froze. You froze. You froze. When I heard you
Yes.
say when you get the notification, you're like,
Yes, but I was just saying that sometimes, we made that commitment now that when we get that notice and that notification, we know things are going to be hectic. But we said now, regardless of what's going on, the building can be on fire. But that's what the firemen are for.
right,
We're going to
girl, you better tell it. It's so true. Oh my goodness, it's
Yes,
intentional work.
yes.
It
So
is
you
so
have to put it on your
intentional.
schedule now.
Yes,
Yes. So
yeah,
that
because
is,
you like you
think
said
about
those.
it.
those things will pop up where you'll be drawn away from it. But when you see it popping up, you're like, okay, I have to commit to it. And that's something that, to your point, that the leader is not only intentional about putting it on the schedule, but living by it too, right?
Mhm.
Like making sure that you're living and operating in the way that you want your team, your leadership team to operate. So if you have something pop up on the calendar, you commit to it and that's what it is. Right?
That's
Very
what it
similar
is.
to like when we were talking, I think it was the earlier on in this conversation about, values and having it all over the place. Like I've been in buildings where the values and the mission statement are all over the place, over the doors in the classroom, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't feel
You
it
don't
in the
feel
building,
it. Yeah.
right? So it's this intentionality around, making sure if you have these moments scheduled to check in for fellowship, for well-being, how is your day? Tell me what's
Yeah.
stressing you right now about this work. Like
Yeah.
when you commit time to that, it's really, really, it makes the difference in so many ways. Can you share with us an example of something that you've done with a school leader or either with the village group where you are sharing this practice with leaders? What is something that you have done that you have found to be really effective?
But one of the things about coaching is talking about what brings the leaders joy.
Mm,
And, so when you ask that question, what brings you joy, or what brought you
mhm.
joy today?
Right.
That's a loaded question,
Yeah, yeah.
and that really makes people pause.
Mhm.
Because sometimes people be like, I don't know.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
then we have to, like you said, be intentional. Because after a long week or even after a month, you can't think of what brought you joy, then that you know that there's work to do.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah,
You have to run after it. Because I know as a leader for me, what brings me joy is seeing the students,
yeah,
seeing and being in the classroom. So if I
right.
go a whole week and I haven't been in the classroom, something's wrong.
And something feels off in
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
yeah, and so
yeah,
that's that awareness, that's that emotional intelligence, that awareness of yourself, like,
exactly.
"Okay, something's not right now, something feels off."
Yep. And from other leaders, it is helping a teacher.
Yeah,
A leader may say, you know what, I didn't help any teachers this week.
yeah,
With so many fires in the building, I didn't even get a
yes,
chance to help a new teacher. We have new teachers in the building, and I was just running around. It was on my calendar. I had to cancel it. So they feel burned out. They're stressed
yeah,
because they didn't
yeah,
connect to what brings them
yeah,
joy.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that
it's so
goes right
true.
back to your why. It goes right back to your core values because you'll find
Yeah,
that
it's
that's
a
what's
full
bringing you joy.
yep. It is a full circle, which is why it is so like critical to keep that forefront and center with
Hmm.
everything that you do, right?
Yep.
Um, Thank you so much for your time today. This has been really good. Tell the people how they can reach you. Um, Tell them how they can get in contact with you.
Definitely. So we're first of all on Facebook and Instagram at the Village LG. That is the very first place to check out the village and to join the village. Right now, we are piloting our Set Your Team on Fire course. So I am offering any individuals who join the village within the month of September and October and access to the course, a little introductory offer to check it out. And so definitely join the village so I can send you the details about our online course that goes along with our book.
That's so exciting. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Roz. You've given us powerful insights on leadership, from like defining your core values, building trust, and maintaining balance. And all while igniting, like making sure that you're igniting your team to like set your team on fire, right? To keep them inspired with the
Right.
work that they do. So as leaders, we're all striving to make a lasting change, but that only happens when we commit to both big and the small steps that lead to long-term success. So for everyone tuning in or watching the replay, thank you so much. drop some comments and let us know what you think, or just if you agree with some of the things that we said, if you had some ideas or suggestions to any points that we've raised. So thank you for tuning in. And remember, leadership is not about perfection. That is killing us as leaders. It's about progress. It's about consistency. It's about staying true to your values no matter what the challenges are. So keep pushing forward, leaders. Stay aligned to your vision. Mind that gap. And as Dr. Gaskins so beautifully shared with us today, always set your team on fire in the best way possible, right? All right. Have a great evening,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Gaskins. Hold
Thank
on.